Okay then, thank you very much for having me and inviting me here this afternoon. You'll be pleased to know I'm not going to stand here and talk for 20 minutes. I've got a number of videos which I think hopefully you'll find very exciting and interesting in terms of what Babylon are doing. It is great for me to be back here personally. I spent the first 13 years of my life living on the island, and so I'm always pleased to come back. And I think I've had the pleasure of being at the first Isle of Wight festival, and I was back here for the 50th watching my son play in the summer, so I was really excited to do that, and it's great to be back. I think we've heard a lot of conversations about uses of AI this afternoon. I think the best one that I heard in the last 24 hours, we had a bit of a pre-meeting last night, some of us, was, if he's here, the chairperson of Red Funnel, who thought they could use it for digital and satellite navigation systems, which I thought was probably quite useful. But anyway, moving on from that. What's great about being back here is seeing what's changed, what hasn't changed, and how the passage of time changes over 40 years. But one thing that we do know is that healthcare in particular, which is obviously where Babylon's focus is changing dramatically, and is faced with a number of very serious challenges in the UK, across the world, in terms of ageing population, multiple long-term conditions, and in most cases a reducing and shrinking workforce. And so what Babylon's aim is our mission is to basically we believe that it's possible to make healthcare accessible and affordable for everyone on Earth, which is a very bold statement, but we've started that process and we're already working around the world doing this. Affordability is driven by basically reducing the cost base. In most cases, healthcare is delivered by very expensive clinicians, and on average, probably about 70% of the cost base of healthcare is actually the cost of staff themselves. So if you can use AI in any way whatsoever to reduce the time they spend doing the functions they're doing, automating some of those functions, then you're going to see significant savings, which will either save money or increase capacity or do both. Accessibility in terms of healthcare, we've seen it in other sectors, the way we access banking, the way we shop. Healthcare is lagging behind that, not just in the UK, but across the globe. And so we want to reduce the sort of fruitless visits and journeys you have, where you travel great distances, or clinicians travel great distances, to spend 10 minutes in front of a patient, if that, and they go on their merry way again. So we want to use technology to reduce some of that. And we're working already in areas like Rwanda, where 2 million patients access their healthcare over their phones using the Babylon application, which has been funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Rwanda government, but also in areas like the Isle of Wight, where you have geographical challenges in terms of people travelling, but also in terms of getting experienced staff to the island to be able to deliver the services you need. I've mentioned how we want to do this in terms of the way we use our AI is to help diagnostics and triage and assessment services, using artificial intelligence to support those processes, providing information for patients to help self-manage their care, and help clinicians in terms of preparing them for the patient before they arrive and providing very relevant real-time information that makes the consultation far more effective and streamlined and more efficient. And then, as I've mentioned, using mobile phones to provide the accessibility. I think it's estimated next year there'll be 6 billion mobile phones in use on the planet. So why aren't we using that technology to access care across the globe, both in the developed and the developing countries? This morning, the professor from Portsmouth, whose name has just escaped my mind, was talking about what is AI. And I have been with Babylon for 14 months. Prior to that, I was at Virgin Care for 10 years and helped set up also before that NHS Direct. And I can't get my head around AI. I think lots of people have tried to explain that today, and most of them have lost me. But one of the things the professor from Portsmouth was saying was AI is basically where we use machines to replicate or replace what humans do. So the way we've done that at Babylon, basically, is to on the left-hand side, unfortunately you can't see that very clearly, but that is a human brain. And it consists of medical reasoning, learning, patient interaction, communication skills, medical knowledge base, their education, their training, and everything that is in their brains that help them assess patients, and from that, prediction. And we have basically built AI to replicate those functions on the right-hand side, where we have triage and identification, learning. We use NLP to create the interaction with patients and replicate the language transference that a doctor would have or a clinician would have. And we have a knowledge base, which is an AI knowledge base. It has over 500 million lines of data in it, which is slightly more than your average clinician. And we use predictive analysis to basically assess and predict and work out what is wrong with the patient. But rather than me try and explain all of that and how that works, I'm going to show you a short video of how the AI conducts a triage, and in this case, how it's doing that using Alexa as the interface with the patient.
Hello, Louise. How can I help you? Well, I've been feeling a bit dizzy recently. I'm sorry to hear that. Can you tell me a bit more? Do you feel like the room is spinning, or are you feeling faint?
Yeah, sometimes it feels like the room's spinning.
And have you noticed any hearing loss?
Yeah, I have actually.
Do you have a ringing, buzzing, or humming sound in one or both ears?
Yeah, both ears. It's horrible.
Do you have any pain in your ears?
No.
Have you had a fever?
No, none.
Have you noticed any discharge coming out of your ears?
No.
Looking at your user graph, I can see you had glandular fever a few months ago.
Oh yeah, that was awful.
For how long have you been unwell with these symptoms now?
A couple of months.
Finally, have you noticed that your ears are feeling full or blocked?
Yes, actually.
I think I might know what's been causing your symptoms. It is most likely to be Meniere's disease, a condition of the inner ear that can affect balance and hearing. It could also be labyrinthitis, an infection of the nerve in the ear. Meniere's disease needs a specialist opinion and might be helped with some medicine to reduce the dizziness, so I'd recommend talking to one of our GPs.
Sure, sounds good.
Dr. Garchot is available straight away, and according to your calendar, so are you. Would you like me to book your appointment?
Yes, please.
All booked. Your phone will ring in just a minute when the appointment starts.
Okay then, thank you, and apologies for the technology slightly out of my hands. The last bit is a bit of poetic license in terms of booking it straight into your calendar, but actually the technology's there. We see no reason why you can't do that. I think, hesitant to use the technology now. Yeah, so what you've got here is basically, we're showing what we've got is a blend of the chatbot, which you've just seen on the left-hand side, but using Alexa as a portal for that, providing digital appointments over your phone with clinicians and nurses and other clinical staff in terms of remote capacity, and then finally physical face-to-face services in London, where we're providing the service to 35,000 NHS patients who have switched to this model of care for their GP practice. We find that 4 out of 5 of those patients conclude their consultation over their smartphone. We can write prescriptions, we can do all the things that your GP practice and you would expect from your GP practice. 1 in 5 of those appointments, the patient actually needs to come in and be seen physically. So we're having to provide the whole suite of services here in terms of AI, digital consultations, and then physical consultations. The other thing we've developed, which you'll see a little bit of in a minute, which is the second video, and hopefully we can make it work a bit more seamlessly, is in terms of developing what we call a digital twin, which is a virtual self. We've developed some software in terms of supporting sort of an overall health and wellness preventative agenda. It basically, you enter in information over sort of 200 different questions, which is built up over time, your lifestyle, your family history, your background, and this creates a digital twin which is basically screening you for over 20 different disease conditions, and it will highlight whether you're at risk of diabetes, COPD, other clinical conditions, and then offer advice in terms of how you can manage that, lifestyle choices, decisions, diet, etc. So this is built into the application as well, and patients who register with the service have access to this. Again, I have this on my mobile phone and have completed it. And so that's a really important part of not just providing services for people who are sick, but trying to influence the agenda about how we're living our lives and addressing some of the real challenges that the society is seeing with obesity and the propensity for some of these disease conditions. The next thing I'm going to show, which, as I said, hopefully will come up in a minute. Have you just... Yeah, watch this. This is a consultation with one of our doctors using the application.
My name is Dr. Chakrabarti. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
So I can see you've completed our AI assessment, and from this, can I confirm that you've been having dizziness for a few months now, with some hearing loss and also some ringing in your ears?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, you look quite comfortable at the moment, so does the dizziness come and go?
Yeah, I don't have it at the moment.
Okay. And when you do get the dizziness, how long do the symptoms last?
A few hours at a time, I'd say, probably. Yeah.
Okay. And does changing the position of your head bring on the dizziness? Sorry, what I mean to say is, do you get dizzy, for example, when you turn your head to look to one side or when you turn over in bed?
Oh, okay. No.
Have you felt sick or vomited when you get the dizziness?
No.
Okay. And is there anything else you wanted to tell me about your symptoms? For example, have you had any headache, any weakness, any numbness at all?
No.
Okay. According to our records, you also had glandular fever a few months ago. Has that all settled?
Yeah, that was awful. That's gone now.
Great. I mean, just looking at the blood test results from back then, they all came back normal as well.
Great.
So I would agree with our AI assessment. It looks like your symptoms are being caused by an ear condition called Meniere's disease. This causes a build-up of pressure within the balance centre, and that's what causes those awful dizzy episodes that you've been getting.
Okay.
The most important thing now is to relieve those awful symptoms. So I'd like to prescribe something called prochlorperazine. Can I just double check you're not pregnant at all?
No chance of that.
And you're not allergic to any medications?
No.
Okay. So I'll send that prescription to your usual pharmacy. It'll take around an hour or so.
Okay.
Does that all sound okay?
It sounds a little bit serious.
Well, as you found out, the symptoms can be really serious when you have them, but Meniere's itself usually isn't, and it can be really well managed with the medication.
Okay, thanks.
One thing to mention, given that it looks like you do have Meniere's disease, this could put you at a high risk of getting migraines. So I'd like you to do our migraine risk assessment, and that way we can see if there's anything that we can help you to reduce your risk.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Great. Okay, so I'll just run through the next steps confirming your diagnosis and how to take the medication safely.
Thank you. So that's a demonstration of the software we're developing. Some of that is already in place. I've talked about the digital twin and how that information about me can be there alongside with the doctor when I have that appointment, preempting and pre-warning the doctor of conditions that I have that they might not be aware of. The triage assessment that Louise there has just done is feeding into the call, so the doctor knows exactly what the computer has said they think is the illness. And then you also saw information from the NHS record. We're connecting it to wearables so that other data can all inform a holistic picture for the clinician in terms of how that works. This is nearly the final slide. In London, as I said, we've launched this service. We launched it last year. The practice we had started off with 2,000 patients. It now has 35,000 patients. It's the fastest growing NHS practice in the history of the NHS. And basically, patients access their appointments 24/7 as an NHS patient over their smartphone, and in 1 in 5 occasions come into. At the moment, we have 5 locations in London where patients can choose to come in and be seen physically if that's what they need. And we're now looking to expand that around the country into other major cities, but also in discussions with people in the island about whether we can use this technology to support practices, bring our own practice to the island, or a number of different options about how we could develop the service here. I think the only thing I'd add on top of that really is we're already operating now across the world. I mentioned Rwanda. which was the first overseas service we had. Last week we went live in Canada. We're now taking this to 9 countries across Asia. We have a deal in China and also in America. So this technology is being adopted at pace, at scale, across the world, in most cases by private insurance companies who can move very quickly to fund it because they see the business benefits it brings them and their patients in terms of how it operates. So sorry for the technological challenges. It's a bit of whistle-stop tour of what Babylon are doing, and thanks very much for your time.